Hey everyone, welcome back to my vanilla project, where I'm using command blocks to overhaul vanilla Minecraft. I'm Kloo, and you might be asking yourself, what's this in my hand? What is this magical sword that's emanating fire? But wait, I can swap it. I can put it on my main hand, and there's still particles coming off it. Swap it back, and then go back to that side. How interesting. But what exactly is it? Well, let me tell you. It is a massive headache. Something that took me almost a week to figure out how to build in Minecraft. Ooh, was it worth it? Well, we'll find out. So a little while ago, I started overhauling a lot of the systems I've built using my command blocks and adding particles and sound effects to them. And it was a massive headache that I decided to completely intensify with these two monstrosities of command blocks. So these two giant bits of labor and love have what enabled me to make directional particles. So not only is it emanating from my sword, so to speak, if I turn, it follows us. And is always located on that left-hand side or right-hand side, depending on where you actually have your sword. And there's about 11 different variations. So for my actual weapon ability system, I've come up with 30 unique weapons for Minecraft. And if I decide to give all 30 of them a unique particle effect, well, I'd probably crash the game. So, you see on the bottom right-hand side there, the giant red bars. Yeah, so that's a problem. That's what happens when you run way too many command blocks. So, each of those lines is essentially a tick, and in those ticks, I am forcing the game to do a lot of calculations that are starting to affect performance. Luckily for me, I can turn them off by clicking these nice red buttons, and you can see those giant lines disappear. We go back to normalish levels, but unfortunately, so do my particles. And we like particles, don't we? So luckily, we haven't gone overboard just yet, and we can still run with them. We've got a few different variations. Got some green particles here for this one that's got Traveler, Ignite, obviously it's fire. But how exactly did I do it? Well, we'll hop into a different world and I will go over it quickly. So here's where I actually made the magic happen. And where I tore my brain in half, swapped down around the sides, if you get that. So, anecdote. You've got your left hand, right hand side. Usually people who with left-handed are more inclined for artistic needs. And then people with a right-handed sense of mentality generally are better at math and spatial thinking. And boy, did I need a lot of spatial thinking to get this done. So we have the two x-axes here, x and y, x and z, sorry, y is up and down. Positive direction, negative direction, and depending on which way I face, different particles happen. So if I face this command block, you can see I'm getting that green sparkly effect. Turn that off quickly. Fire, I think that's like the llama sneeze, is it? And what's happening here is I'm using a very specific set of commands. I'm using this Y rotation. And using the Y rotation, you can set in an angle of view. So if the player looks between these two numbers, and yes, it gets more confusing because these are fractions, it will run a particle at a set position. So that's that left-hand side right by where the sword is. And I had to manually figure out where exactly to run the particles. It doesn't really matter, we're done with this world anyway. Manually figure out where to run the particles so that it looks proper, looks like the sword is emanating the particles. And then not only that, I had to work out the right angles. Because initially, what I had done is I'd made a pizza. I'd ate the pizza, and then I made a pizza in Minecraft. So we make our little pizza in Minecraft. We've got these different slices. So 1 slice, 2 slice, 3 slice, you get it. And the way it had worked is I was using this as a slice, and that's a no-no. The slice I need is actually a lot more convoluted. So I need this slice, this slice, this slice. Essentially, I had to turn a, 4-side pizza into 8. And then I have to work out the exact range, and boy oh boy, if you think that's boring, imagine me sitting down to write it all out. But anyway, we'll hop back into the normal world and we'll actually show off what they're for, because that's a bit more interesting than than this. I just wanted to make note of it because it was a strenuous process. But I'm glad I got it done. So what exactly is it for? Well, it's for my weapon system, like I said before. So in my addition to vanilla, you can go ahead and you can take an ender pearl and you can rename it certain things, for instance, like storm. And you take it over to this little structure. You can drop all your ingredients into the middle. So an ender pearl that's named 64 amethyst shards, and you can see it should start to... Yeah, you can hear that little twinkle. And if we drop a sword in there, our sword now has Storm 1. So previously, I didn't have any of this particle effect that I'm seemingly chasing. And while it creates a certain feel for the game, I had my reasons for not building it. Obviously, lag is a big thing. I am on a, I would say probably high-mid tier type of computer. Custom build and everything. So it can obviously handle everything I've built up there. But obviously, I want this map to be playable. So I need things that can either be switched on and off like we've built, or obviously things that don't take up a lot of, we'll call it computer brain cells. Wait, what are you doing there? So, I had to come up with a system. I had a sort of terrible one. Essentially, whenever you were ready to create a effect, if we can find the right entities, there should be some down here. I can show off what this sword actually does. That probably would help. So yeah, so you can summons lightning. So I used to have a particle effect that would emanate off the player just before the swing that would actually activate the lightning. I don't like that. I like to think of it more like a RPG style of weapon, where it's a chance on hit. Granted, I know what the exact chance is. You don't. But in that sense, I want to come up with a better way of displaying the particles. So we have 30 different weapons. And again, if I were to make 30 different particle effects, that big tower... Where am I meant to be looking? I think it's hidden behind this one. Oh, no, it's right there. So this big tower would touch the ground. Because it would have to be... what was it? 8. It's 16 per, so it's 16 by 30. Ooh. Lot. So instead, what I've come up with is essentially any of my little enchantments that have similar abilities. So I think there's Storm, and then there's like Electrifying Block. I'll go back quickly. So now we've got a shield. You can see it's got the sparkly effect too. We're all decked out in lightning. I should probably show it off though. Husks. Husks don't burn in light. That might be overkill. Swap over to survival. Oh, I need to block. Yeah, so every time I block, they get electrified. And every time I swing, they get electrified. Granted, you can't really control where it strikes. But yeah, so I've grouped, essentially, weapons, or shields in this case, that have a similar effect together. That way I only had to come up with a single particle effect. And that way my big tower is only a medium-sized tower. So instead of having to come up with 30, I think I whittled it down to 11. Which is still, unfortunately, a bit on the big side. Because again, yeah, that just looks awful. If we ever drop below 20, so that little TPS, I can't really show it. It's under here once I do that. If that ever drops below 20, that's when we actually start noticing problems in game. So like placing blocks, block lag. If you've ever experienced block lag, that's what we will eventually have, and I don't want that. The worst case is essentially... Theoretically, if you were to think about in terms of, say, a multiplayer world, if you were to have 2 people, the tick lag that I'm creating would essentially double. Because everything I'm doing that is scanning the player's inventory would scan 2 players' inventory, and so forth and so on. And that's not something I really want. In that scenario, I would rather have no particles at all. But I do admit, it does look nice. Having a shiny sword, at least to some degree. Granted, it doesn't do much. I could up the particles, I guess, but I also don't want it to completely block out the player's screen. We could also minimize the amount of times it procs, make it slower, make it a partial effect. All these things could help, but it is what it is. So, is it worth it? I don't know, and I can't really answer that till I get my map out and people start playing it, or I do extensive testing and, you know, see if you can venture out in the world and everything still functions as it should. Ooh. But it's done. And not just that's done. That means everything I necessarily want to do is done, which is great. And there's only one more step to take. And that's building bosses, which should be the fun and exciting part. So I need to build 12 bosses, and I'll probably do one per episode going forward now. I just wanted to give a little bit of an update, show off these nice, snazzy new particle effects, and sort of tell you a little bit of the plight I went through. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. See ya.